Obviously, we're not going to tell you everything that we're doing here as far as the construction. These are just some pointers and tips and kind of documenting our path to doing this. Two sites that I found that have been really good for information for building guitars. Both of them YouTube sites. One of them is Sully's Guitar Garage, and that's S-U-L-L-Y-S, Guitar Garage. And he's kind of a nut, but he builds guitars out of his garage and he documents a lot of it. There's a lot of very helpful information there. And there's a fellow in either New Zealand or Australia, I think he's Australia. His name is Fletcher. It's Fletcher's Hand-Built Guitars. Look him up on YouTube. Excellent, excellent. He doesn't talk very often. He just shows you how to do it. And he goes step by step through the process of building several guitars. Obviously, we're not doing things exactly like either of these guys. We're doing them kind of our own way. But we're free to do that. I've got a couple of pieces of wood cut for the face of my guitar, and just leaving it here overnight, it warped and curved. In the case of a piece like this, once I book match this, once I match these two edges here, instead of gluing them together like this, I'm actually going to glue the body, and then I'm going to put these onto the body and glue them together on the body, on the heavier piece of wood. The way it'll flatten these out better. Otherwise, they're just not going to be flat. In the meantime, I'm going to put some stickers in between these, some pieces of wood in between these, and put some weight on top of them to see if they'll flatten out or stay a little flatter. Just humidity changes and temperature changes after having cut this stuff so thin is going to make it work. It's going to happen. Okay. Other thing I've done is cut a body template for a Telecaster. In this case, the knots in the wood are going to be in the humps, so we're bypassing those. And also I've got a real rough spot in the wood here where our thickness planer, or the lumberyard's thickness planer, since this was the outside of the wood, gouged the wood a little bit. And that's the only bad spot I've got on this side of the wood. And we're just going to put that right where the pickup's going to be, so that's going to be cut out and covered up anyway. So that's going to work out fairly well. This neck is actually a dummy, just a practice neck that I'm working on. I'm going to go ahead and put a truss rod in it as we're cutting this out. And I'm going to put a piece of maple on top of it. Go ahead and make a fretboard for this one. And if it really turns out well, I'll use it on another guitar. The neck that I'm making that goes with this piece of wood is this 3-piece neck. And it has a piece of figured maple that's going to be the fretboard on this. This is a real temporary setup right now for routing the truss rod channel, and I've already routed this particular truss rod. And what we do is we use some double-sided carpet tape to stick our guide, our template, down to the top of the neck blank. We do all the cutting and shaping the neck blank and just leave that on there the whole time. We go ahead and drill these holes, these pilot holes, while it's stuck on there, and then we put this in between a couple of pieces of wood here, and these actually have some carpet tape sticking them down. This one's not sticking too well. Eventually I'm going to replace this with a jig that's got some square drive screws to just hold these parts together, and I'll use some really nicer looking pieces of wood. But the whole point is to have a nice level surface across here so that I can put a router that has a guide bushing right there. I can put that router into the groove, and by the way, this would be carpet taped down as well, and I can set my depth with the router's depth stop here, and I can cut my groove using that 1/2 inch guide through this 1/2 inch slot. And when I get done, again, all this stuff would be stuck down, so it wouldn't be moving around like this. When I get done, what I have is a 1/2 inch slot here where the groove runs, and I have a 1/4 inch wide slot, or if you're using one of the Stewmack truss rods, the narrower slot, the 7/32 or whatever it is. But in this case, it's a 1/4 inch wide slot. It's that easy. The whole purpose, again, of these pieces is to keep the router level, keep it from tilting, and that makes things a lot easier. What we're trying to do here is drill a hole straight down through the end of this neck And the purpose of this hole is to connect this channel for the truss rod to the base of the neck so we can stick a wrench through and adjust the truss rod.
Looks pretty good.
Okay. See, it's 1 1/4 inch down to where the steel bar starts. I think we're going to have to do 1 1/4 or we're not going to get it through. But let's start with 1 1/8, and if we need to deepen it at all, we can do that with by hand, I think. It's not far enough through?
No. It broke through, but it needs another like 2-3 millimeters.
Okay. Well, we'll run it with another drill then. Okay. There's no way to do this without actually cutting this out and then dropping this in. I thought somehow or another we'd be able to stick it in and turn it through, but the hole is actually really tight, so that's just not going to happen. So we're going to have to cut this out either with a router or handsaw or something. And then we're just going to have to drop the truss rod in and then put another piece of wood on top. Okay, I've set the router up with a 3/8 inch bit, and the guide that I used with the neck, it's a little offset on both sides, but I've got it clamped down securely so that it will guide it. And I've got a mark here that's my stop mark on how far I should go, and I'm going to route the top of that slot out 3/8 of an inch wide so that we can put that truss rod in there. And again, the issue is that this part of the truss rod, we just can't get it through there unless we cut a hole all the way in from the top and then put a piece of filler on top of it. Okay, looks like I'm going to have to use a chisel on this a little bit. Probably some shape chisels to cut that out just a little bit more. Well, lesson learned. I'm never going to buy another one of these cheapy truss rods. As it turned out, the problem wasn't how deep the hole was, but how prominent this end of the truss rod was. It wasn't flat, even when flattened. It wasn't flat all the way down. So I had to put this on the belt sander, as you can see, to kind of trim it down. It's nice and trimmed now. I'll have to snip that off as well. But like I said, lesson learned.